Welcome back to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. Now, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, thanks so much for being a part of the Menopause Movement. Today, we welcome Dana Grant to the podcast, and we're going to talk about thriving in uncertain times. Dana is an intuitive business coach. Her passion is to use her gifts to guide other humans into their power. Now, as an intuitive life and business coach, she takes you from where you are now to where you want to be. She's a mother, a wife, and co-founder of Cauliflower Foods. She believes the key to a fruitful life is facing issues and meeting them head on. Her mission is to coach on how to nourish your soul. She gives you the tools to help you live a balanced and healthy life, and she'll help you learn how to trust the process. During the podcast, we discussed Dana's menopause journey, how her core beliefs didn't match with her actions and what happened, simplification and what that means, how it's never too late to start over, lessons in loss, resistance and how it can hold us back, and stay to the end where Dana does an intuitive reading on me and helps me to see a few things differently. I also encountered many technical problems during the recording of this podcast, and my dog interrupted. So if you hear that or see that, I apologize. At the end of the episode, make sure you visit drmichellegordon.com/podcasts, where you can find the show notes plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. And if you enjoy the episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you're always the first to know when each episode is released. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you for all of the 5-star reviews. And if you haven't left a review yet, please take the time to review the podcast. This helps more women find it and get the help they need during the disruption of menopause. No one should have to go it alone. Thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement. And now let's get to Dana. We've been following each other for almost maybe over a year, maybe more, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Oh, yeah. Your travels included. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are the co-founder of Cauliflower Foods. What is that?
That is a cauliflower pizza crust company.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Ready made. Yeah. It's delicious.
I'm sure. So you can buy that in your freezer aisle or whatever at the grocery store.
Yeah.
As you're wearing your gloves and
absolutely. And it ships to your door as well. I was the original co-founder, but no longer owner of that company. But yeah, it was a kick. It was I loved producing a healthy product and putting it out there.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So let's just, spend a second talking about what got you into doing that, like getting into, especially, you're an intuitive coach, right? And so how does an intuitive coach go from doing one-on-one client work to co-founding a food business?
Well, we'll do it in reverse, Michelle, because that is a really good question. Not a lot of people ask that, and it really is interesting. So if we go back prior to Cauliflower Foods, I was a health coach. So I loved creating food, healthy food. And, food has always been my vibe. I really love gardening and creating. So originally I created, after Cauliflower Foods, co-creating that, I did Cali Soul Coaching, where there was recipes. And then that went into, I had an aha moment that I needed to drop in a little deeper. And that's where I really landed. I think that's what we do in this life. We actually progress and reveal where we need to be. And for me, it's been that journey. I mean, how do you get from working for a Republican lobbyist, for 20 years to where I am now?
Wait. So I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
So
you missed that on my bio.
Well, I didn't see that on your bio. I don't think it's something that you talk about. So you're in California, you're in Chico, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you worked, is Chico northern or is it central?
It's Northern California. We're about
that's right. You're not too far from San Francisco. That's right.
Yeah. 3 hours above San Fran. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in my, age group, right? We're in the same, 50s, late 40s, 50s.
Late 50s.
Late 50s. Okay. Wouldn't tell by looking at you. You're looking good, girl.
Thank you.
And, we all remember Reagan, and Reagan, swept the nation. And so how did you, that was the first time I voted, right? I was 18.
Yeah.
And it was the presidential election of 1980. And I was 1980. No, must have been 88.
Yeah, I'm thinking
No,
there's Carter.
no,
Yeah, I remember the
84.
Carter
It was
years. Yeah.
84, because that was I just remember voting for Reagan, and, everybody liked Reagan, which, now knowing what I know now, I'm like, ah,
Right.
but is
Exactly.
that, so did you kind of get stuck in the Reagan, like,
I loved Reagan.
vortex? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I come from a really staunch, conservative family, very, very conservative. John Birch, conservative family. So
Okay.
I didn't even think I had a choice. And I think that's where the journey began. I didn't even think I had a choice. I went into politics. I went into lobbying. That was what I was supposed to do. I thought that was, everyone was happy with me. I was doing, what I thought I was supposed to do. And I started getting sick. I started getting very sick. And then I started on a pilgrimage around the world. And I ended up in Victoria, Canada. And I remember flying off a yoga mat, doing all these bizarre treatments and things I'd never heard of. It was a holistic clinic. And I was up there for 10 days and it was like $10,000. And this is back in 1990. And I flew off the mat and I sat up, and at first I said, "We're having an earthquake." And we actually were, but they all laughed and said, "Oh, she's from California." We really did have. But I second said, this was my revelation that changed everything. I don't think I'm a Republican. And I mean, that was my aha moment of changing my life. I don't think I'm a Republican. I wasn't even aware of what I wanted or what I didn't want. So that's when it started.
That's so amazing, because I spend a lot of time with the women in the membership, the Menopause Movement membership, and women who go through, the program that takes them from menno misery to menno mate, called the Menno System. And we talk a lot about belief and how our beliefs shape our reality, and how we make decisions when we're 2 or 3 or 5 that can
Yep.
affect us for the rest of our lives. And my favorite story that, and probably all the listeners are sick of hearing, but you haven't heard this yet, so I'll say it again. My favorite story about belief is this. My mother said something about her brothers who were doctors and that they were rich. And my 5-year-old self said, "I can't make money unless I'm a doctor." And so I missed my true calling, which is what I'm doing now, and I
Right.
became a doctor. Now it's
Right.
when you look at like the universe and how the universe works, everything I've done up until this point, and I love to say this, all of the mistakes, the regrets, the elations, the joy, everything has brought me to this moment, and this is the precious present moment where we are. It's all we have, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think about, when I was a little girl and how I was always searching for God, and I was in Catholic, mass, and the
Yeah.
priest would do this and I would do this and my mom would put my hands down, and I was just trying to get to God. And so it's so
Yeah.
funny, because I recognized my own self as spiritual being having a human experience, and then that all got pushed down, pushed down,
Right.
pushed down, pushed down, and I actually ended up as an atheist for quite a while, until I woke up to Autobiography of the Yogi, of all things.
Yeah.
So
It makes
that's
sense to
my
me.
my journey in a nutshell. But for you to say I'm not a Republican and then kind of step onto a spiritual path, I think that's really, can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I think that we have to incorporate what we love and what we hold in our body. It's that cognitive behavior and and that core belief system that triggers everything we do. And I started understanding why I did what I did. And, that it started with, a feeling and then a sensation and then a thought that we're reacting on it. And my life went like that for a long time. And I think there was a lot of pain. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to feel better. I didn't want to be in so much emotional pain. I didn't want to worry so much about what people thought of me. I had so much love. I was like a puppy in the world. I just wanted everyone to have a big heart like I did. But I kept landing in these power jobs, and I was getting, and I was succeeding really well, but then I'd collapse and get really sick. So I think that duality for me was, I know who I am, don't mess with me, but I have a heart of gold too. And I'd rather be there. I'd rather be in my heart energy than in the other energy
Mm.
that takes over and is extraordinarily assertive. So I think that when those blended was when I accepted everything that I had to offer. And I think that's what's landed me into this intuitive coaching, because I have dropped so deeply in my body without resistance, trusting the process, simplifying my life, because we tend to overcomplicate, and we layer it up so we don't have to see what's right in front of us.
I love that. And you talk about simplifying or simplification. Can you just talk a little bit about, especially now, so it's April 3rd.
So I
But
know it's
the
crazy
pandemic
fast.
is going on. People are staying home. we're not looking like we're going to have any relief in sight. There's going to be 1 million cases probably or more, probably 1.5 million cases in the next 9 or 10 days in the US alone,
Right.
just because of the exponential nature of this disease. And we're going to have increased testing, which will also tell us that. So, but the opportunity that we have for those of us who are home, who are furloughed or can't work and, are collecting their unemployment, getting their $1,200, whatever it is, there is an opportunity for simplification. And so how does someone get started with that?
Well, I think that as in everything we do in our life, and I was looking, when you said this process that's brought me here, I think about when I implemented boundaries was when I was starting to apply boundaries, when I was big on self-love and was pounding that, drum, it was because I was implementing self-love and then self-care. But now it's all come into fruition where I'm incorporating in that balance. And that's what simplification is the balance of all of those. And I think that right now, everything is about your immune system, staying healthy, being aware of what stresses you out. For me, I don't turn on the TV unless I'm going to watch a great movie. Like I watched Emma last night. It was cheerful. It was happy. I can read about what's going on. And, my husband practices medicine, so he brings the guidelines and I read that. And that's all I need to know. I don't need to know that they're dragging more dead people out of Italy. I mean, I'm not interested in that. It's just, that's what really creates the anxiety and the fear that so many people are faced with and overwhelm. So I like to reduce the overwhelm, and that's get good sleep, 7 to 8 hours. 8 hours would be optimum a night. I love baths. Take a bath.
I do too. I love taking baths. I haven't had one in like 2 weeks. And I just, I try to take a bath every night. What I found though, for me, because I'm online and that, I'm trying to get things moving a little bit more. I find that it's easy. So I found that I forgot where I was. So
you were talking about self-care. You love baths and you haven't taken one in 2 weeks and you're gearing up.
Yeah. So here I am. I'm working really hard on my online stuff. And so my own self-care is getting pushed down because I'm really, in this building phase. And so what's your recommendation for somebody like me? And especially since, like on the weekend, I have to go to the hospital and then there's that whole emotional drain.
Right. No, your stress level goes up. And isn't that what our body does? It gears up for the emergency, for the pandemic. And what I'm saying is gear down, get more sleep, make that a priority. When you want to speed up, you make a list. I'm better on my time management now than I've ever been. So I build into my schedule meditation. I build in writing gratitude out because I know gratitude will ground me and stop the spin. So I make sure that I eat good food. I'm eating greens every day. I'm drinking tons of celery. I'm doing things that are nurturing me instead of just reacting and saying, oh, I can have my favorite donuts delivered. Hey, it's cool to have a donut if that's what you want to do. But I know sugar, breaks the body down, the immune system, and it's probably not a cool thing for me to do right now because I am exposed to my husband out there at the hospital every day coming home. So it probably makes my risk go up a little bit. So I'm doing
what kind of doctor is he?
He's primary care, but he was in emergency medicine for a long time.
So he's taking care of patients in the hospital right now.
No, he is just in his office, and they are actually with it's interesting, such a lull of clients because he has a lot of geriatrics. They've gone to the phone. So he is going to be cutting back, which is interesting. I didn't see that coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to say that what we found is that, my wife is a primary care doctor and we're in New York. And so we're this epicenter of the US and we're not that far from the city. We're an hour north of the city. And so what we've done for her is that she sees patients on Zoom. So she has telehealth, and then she's obviously taking care of patients in the hospital as well. And those numbers are just going to keep on increasing. But it is possible to get the geriatric people on Zoom as well, or on FaceTime. You can even do it on FaceTime because apparently, I would double check. I'm not a lawyer, but I think a lot of the HIPAA regulations have been dropped. So something for him to think about. But gearing down in this time, may be hard for some people. It may be hard because of the high level of anxiety with the whole sympathetic nervous system. Just, we're in this fight and flight mode all the time. Yep. And so what are some, other than, meditation and gratitude, which we always like to talk about, what are some other things, taking baths, getting sleep, what are some other practical things that people can actually do to help them kind of calm down during this crisis?
Well, this is where that simplicity comes in. Be aware of who you're connected to when your body's being jacked up or when you feel you're spinning or your gut is knotting up. Disconnect. Put it on people on snooze if they're sending you tons of articles that are very inflammatory, and there's nothing we can do about it but sit back. And I mean, it is a helpless feeling. There is a certain element of helplessness we all feel right now. We're waiting it out. We're doing all we can. We're staying home. Here we are in a podcast in our home offices.
Yeah.
But I think that's when simplicity really has to kick in. We have to say, wait a minute, hold the phone. I'm going back to what I know. Get outside, get some sun in your face in your backyard or your deck of your apartment building. Just feel the air on your face. There's little shifts that we can make that make us feel more connected. And I think grounding to the earth, I love getting outside and walking. Every night I'm under the stars in my backyard, walking in my bare feet on the grass. I love that.
Yeah. I think that's really good. I mean, I live in a pretty, it's suburban, but there's enough space that I can take my dogs and go for like a 3-mile walk or run, a jog with them or something. And so I'm able to get out, and
Right.
I'm seeing a lot more people now than I used to.
Isn't that interesting, Michelle?
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm sitting here
Yeah.
looking at my Peloton. I had knee surgery in January, so I bought a Peloton and then I threw my back out. It was really a crazy, weird time for me. And I thought, wow, I knew I had to I was still and quiet. Whenever things start speeding up, I start going in and getting very still. And I knew my core strength wasn't strong enough. And so I bought the bike and I'm on the bike and I'm looking out a great window. And I thought, this is a great way to keep moving. And you're right. We need to keep moving. We need to keep our physical, especially at our age. Our bodies
Yeah.
are, breaking. They're not going to build muscles easy, damn it.
Well, I mean, nutrition, you said you were a health coach, and nutrition is such a key component here, especially as we go through menopause. I mean, we have so many symptoms, and so many women, their lives are so disrupted by menopause because, the loss of estrogen, and then we get the brain fog, and then we can't sleep. And so the brain fog gets worse. And then we think that we're having dementia. And so for you, when you started menopause, where were you in this journey, and how did menopause affect your decisions?
Yeah. Well, I want to say, let's see how far back I have been post-menopause about 10 years at least. So I was just shy on the other side of 45 when it was like hitting a brick wall and sliding down it. I thought I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
I thought I was losing my mind. I felt like my mind had gotten smaller, it didn't expand. My reasoning, my skill set, I was angry. I yelled all the time. I was a nightmare. I couldn't sleep. I had migraines. It was and I didn't know I was going through menopause. No one told me that I thought the migraines, extreme pain, the weight loss, I was very thin. I thought maybe that had thrown it off because I was a cyclist and I just couldn't stop cycling. I thought maybe this is all what's going on, but it was menopause. I look back on it now and I thought just one person could have said, hey, you're going through menopause, but I didn't know how I would have loved to plugged into you back then.
Sure. Well, of course. and that's the thing, I mean, it's almost like it's the secret society that no one wants to talk about. Right.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I like to compare it to is, at least in puberty, we get warned, your body's going to change. You're going to develop breasts. You're going to start to bleed. You're going to have all these changes in your body. And then I really want to blame it on the patriarchy. It may not be just the patriarchy, but, women we don't like to talk about our periods, and we don't like to talk about our change of life. Right. Yeah. And we know there is a change. There's the change. And we've heard about the change, but we don't actually say, hey, this is your time. This is your time because you've taken care of your kids. Your relationship is either going to get better or it's going to end.
Yep.
Because
bingo.
I mean, yeah.
Bingo.
Because but that's really what happens. I mean, it's going to get better. It's going to end. You may have some trouble with your sexuality and deciding, whether you're going to want to have sex or not. And that's another discussion altogether. But, if you're with somebody,
but a big discussion nevertheless.
But if you're with somebody and have a solid relationship, I mean, my relationship weathered 5 years without sex. And
Yeah.
we did okay, we did okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
yeah,
6. We went 6.
yeah, but it took me that long to get my libido. I mean, I'll take the blame. I mean, I lost my libido. I completely lost it. And so these are things that happen. But the reason why I've named it the menopause movement is not because I mean, there are women who won't even come near me because of the word menopause, right? But
Right.
the reason I've named it that is because let's get rid of the stigma. Menopause happens.
Right.
It's the privilege of a long life.
Yep.
You
Just the fact
know?
we made it here. Just the fact we made
Yeah.
it here. And
Yeah.
you're right. I would love for the generations to follow. I have 3 daughters. I would love for them to be more prepared than I was. I don't want them ever to hit a brick wall, slide down it, and not know what's going on for a year. And that
That's
was
why
the
we have the
time.
podcast.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, what's interesting about that, when you said this is when it's going to, my husband, for the first time ever, we separated for a year. He moved out and I just sat there not knowing what was going on
Yeah.
because I thought, I'm the same person, aren't I? But I wasn't. It tripped me into a whole nother. Yeah.
Well, and that's so common because women say, I don't recognize myself. I'm so moody. I'm like a
Right.
teenager. I can't stand myself. My kids can't stand me. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what to do. I can't make decisions anymore. I used to be, happy and carefree. And now, I crave food and all I do is think about food,
Right.
and so these are actual things that women have told me about, what going through menopause is like. And so, I built the menopause movement so that we could have a community, and it's a community of it's a carefully curated community of kick-ass women who are going through it together,
Yes.
and we're all just like working through it. But at the same time, we're exploring like, what does it mean to be a woman in this day and age, mature,
Right.
and how are we going to become the best version of ourselves? Because I think, we get to this age and it's like, okay, what's next?
Right.
It's my kids are out, and I need a purpose now. And that's what we do. We're able to help. And I think you do that too. When you're, in your coaching, you help women kind
Right.
of connect with their purpose.
Oh yeah. And it's never too
Yeah.
late to start over. It's never too late to rebuild. In fact, I think
Yeah.
it's ideal at this age because you've got all these lessons that we can apply and all this wisdom that we've learned. And I mean, if I could go back and know what how many times have we said that, know what I know now. But
Yeah.
one of the biggest pivotal moments for me when I was going through menopause, my husband had left. I had moved from a very large house and I had moving trucks and it took much longer. And the mover, we had a bad falling out. It wasn't good. I paid him a check and said, this is what you're going to get. And it ended. I had no idea he was so angry, but 10 years later, I'm cooking cauliflower pizza crust. He had reached out and sent a negative letter to my co-founder. And he called me on the phone and I picked it up for some reason. I took my gloves off and I never do that, but I picked it up and there was this person on the other end that says, I can't go into a doctor's office without seeing your face on a magazine or an article about you. He goes, did you have a lobotomy? And I'm like, who is this? And it was the mover that moved me through the worst stage of my life. I was in menopause. I couldn't function. And I probably was a little bit, sharp with him. And I had coffee with him and said, hey, I can't explain to you what happened because you probably don't want to know that. But it was all about menopause. And it really was.
Yeah.
I just
menopause is disruptive.
I know my dog's at my feet.
I don't know how she got in here, but here she is. She's big. She's big.
Yeah. Oh, look at her. Oh, hello, beautiful. Well, hello.
Right.
She's gorgeous.
I know. You're so needy. All right. Just let's give the dog a second to.
Yeah. Mine's sleeping at my feet. Thank you, Leon.
Okay. You've got dirt on your nose. Go on. Go lay down. Go. Oh, okay. So menopause was really disruptive for you, as it is for many women. And tell me about how you came out the other side.
Wow. That was interesting. I came out the other side through a lot of losses. My husband was a cycler too. He was hit by a car. We lost everything. We lost our home. And through that, there was just something regenerated in me that I knew the second half of my life was going to be, that's where I was going to really thrive. It wasn't, I knew I set records and did great things in the beginning, career-wise, but I knew that the difference I was going to make was in the second half of my life. I felt it. And that's where I started the spiritual journey. I couldn't read enough. I couldn't, get enough certificates. I couldn't go to enough events. I was just soaking it all in, new experiences, just experiencing it all. I wanted to feel it all. Instead of
Yeah,
shutting it off, I opened it up.
I love that. It's so funny. When I was 18 or so, I left home and I moved to California. Well, I moved to California when I was 20, but I had this job when I first moved to California. I was in Southern California, and I worked with disabled adults. All right. And so I went into, this place every day and, whatever. But I never thought that I was doing my calling. My calling was always to be in front of an audience. And I always saw myself as an old person, I'm old now, right? My mature self was in front of an audience, speaking in front of an audience. That's always how I saw myself, and so here I am, mature and in front of an audience,
Right.
and so I just think I never saw myself as a doctor really. And it took, it took
Right.
my subconscious to really push me toward that, because I was studying music actually when
Wow.
when I took, by chance, I took a trig class, and then I ended up like really getting it. And I was like, oh, I'm not dumb. So,
Right.
I'm not dumb, so I can be a doctor, which is like, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well,
But
no, that does matter. That's fascinating. And that's why, and that's what's landing me here being an intuitive coach. I listen
yeah,
to what people are saying. I read their body energy and I'm like, I see where you're blocked. I see what's going on. I see where you made a left when you could have made a right because, and it's all the external, it's the whole picture. It's not just one thing where they drive, where they land in this life, but it's never too late to figure it out and bring it up and say, wait a minute, I'm meant to do this. I've had so many coincidences. Louise Hayes, who I love, she created Hay House
yeah,
Publishing. What was she, in her 60s when
yeah.
she
I mean,
started
she
that?
died. She
Or
was
late 50s?
late 90s.
Late
So
90s. Well, I found out when she died that our birthdays were the same. I utilized all her books. I felt such a connection to her. And I started about the same time she did, relaunching my direction. And people saying,
yeah,
what are you doing? You're an intuitive. What are you doing? You're reading? What? You're doing, women's retreats in Italy? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I have no doubt that I'm going to do it very, very well.
So you were talking about Louise Hay, and it made me think about Gabby Bernstein. Her most recent book, Super Attractor,
Right.
and talks about how she is able to connect with Wayne Dyer and the spirit of Wayne Dyer. Now, this is really out there, for all of you who are not that woo woo. I'm going to say that, this is part of becoming spiritual, is you start to see that there is more to just being a bag of meat. And so
Yes.
and so but it's really interesting, because in that book she unashamedly talks about, channeling him. And it just made me think that, most likely Louise Hay is probably one of your angels or spirit
Yeah. Oh,
guides.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever meet her in person?
No, I was planning on it. And that's how I found out our birthdays were the same. We were born at the same
uh,
time. The whole thing just
yeah.
blew me away. But you're right. There is something deeper. And if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would have been in Sedona with Bruce Liston and Joe Dispenza and Lisa Williams and all these powerful spiritual people, and I was going to spend a week. And when I left there, I was going to rebrand and actually do readings and be called out and say, I mean, I'd always known. I'd always known,
Yeah.
but it had frightened me. You've got the religion thing of it and the way I was raised and like, oh,
Sure.
and the first thing I got was, you can't be this and you can't believe in God and you can't do that. And I said, that's why I'm a modern seer. I can believe in anything I want to. And I'm totally connected to God and the source. And I know exactly where my information is coming from. And up until this point, if I'm getting true downloads, they are spot on. I
Yeah,
don't question.
that's true. And then, we come back to meaning, and
Mhm.
nothing has meaning unless we give meaning to it. Right.
Exactly.
So if you say words to me and I choose to react to those words in a way, and you might say, I think your podcast logo sucks. And I can say, well, okay. And I can choose to take that as an attack, or I can choose to apply zero meaning to it.
Right. Well, it goes through
And
everyone's filter. Yeah. It goes through their
but
filter
that's true
and their
freedom.
connection with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
True
that's
freedom.
true freedom. But I wanted Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
He's really blown up in the last few years. I mean, he's been, ever since What the Bleep Do We Know, and then,
Yep.
going on and on. But what I love about Joe is that he is actually recording medical facts of
Yep.
advanced yoga techniques and how yoga, changes our genetics, and yoga will, and we're not talking about yoga poses, people. We're talking about yoga, which is, the pranayama of yoga, the breathing techniques of yoga that get you in touch with
Right.
God. And when you read Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda talks about Kriya Yoga, which is a super secret method of contacting God, but it's a special way of breathing. And they won't even teach it
Right.
to you until you've done their techniques, for 5 or 6 months. And so he actually says in the book, Jesus did Kriya Yoga or something similar, because that's how you contact God. And when he was alive, Yogananda talked about how the spinal column is a path to God.
Right.
And the reason I bring this all up is because when you read the, Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, he talks about a breathing technique that will bring, basically he's teaching Kundalini to
Yeah.
get the soul out of the body, get you out of it, activate the pineal gland, and
Right.
release some DMT so that you can have a spiritual, like a spiritual experience. And he talks about all of these things. And he also talks about how he used to really worry about what people thought.
Right.
And, because he's a chiropractor. And so, he's in
Yep.
the medical profession. And, medical doctors like me and probably your husband, look at chiropractor. We kind of look down on it a little bit. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's doing true research, and I've got a lot of respect for him. And he's changed all my beliefs around
Yeah.
that, because he takes the energy of a room, and he actually tests epigenetics, and he tests for IgA,
Right.
and then he does his Kriya medication, or whatever the hell it is, this deep meditation, and then
Right.
miracles happen. And miracles are happening
Yes.
when people do that. And you can learn how to, when you read Becoming Supernatural, he teaches that breathing technique in that book. You
Well,
don't have to be in his presence to do it. You
you're
can just do it.
yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't have to be in his presence. I send his videos out all the time, his meditation, and I'll ask people, "Hey, well, did you take a look at that?" And they'll say, "Oh, I didn't get to it." And I'm like, "Oh, you really need to." And
Yeah.
it's not for, it's, I specifically choose it for people that I think are ready for that, because it does open up, I think, the heart chakra, the body, and just the levels of that we hold energy in. I mean, let's face it, we're all energy,
Yeah.
and the energetic shift I had in Sedona back in, I don't know when I was there, last October, flipped my business. I had just launched my freedom coaching. I knew where I just didn't resonate with my branding. I loved it, but I didn't totally love it. And
Right.
it was when I was there, I had a complete vision of what it was, just like a download I could see of where I was going. And I had a reading 2 years prior I was told all this was going to happen. And I'm like, oh yeah. And a best-selling book too? I don't think so. And as I was saying that in my head, she goes, what makes you think you can't write? What makes you think you're not good enough to write? I'm like, oh my gosh, she's reading my mind, because I thought, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a good enough writer to write a book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's great.
it's pretty remarkable. But yeah, this work it's on, as you know, it's ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the work never stops.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't stop.
that's something that has been really interesting for me, as I've gotten older, and my own view of myself. I'm finally starting to see myself as an adult. And for the longest time, I always looked at myself as some kid who needed to be corrected or needed to learn something more. And so my own, journey, spiritual journey, life journey, whatever, is really coming of age to walking into who I'm supposed to be. And, I'm 55 years old, and I'm finally getting there, and I'm happy that I'm getting there. But, being a surgeon is not what lights me up anymore. And
Well, it's so
so,
interesting you just said that. And I pulled a card on our break, which we didn't, the audience didn't get a chance to hear. And I'm thinking, boy, how does that guiding children Dharma card connect to you? But now I realize where it does. It's the inner child. It's to find that youth in you, that inner child that wants to come out and play and be re-guided without the
yeah,
limited beliefs, the things that you've been told that you need to do. She
right.
needs to be in control now. Let her out and have some
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah.
clear
That's
why
great.
we chose her.
That's so, yeah, it's very interesting that you would pick that kind of a card. But you also, in that card, you also said that it says that I'll be leading other
Yeah,
children.
yeah,
Yeah.
and, yeah,
So
and I do believe you will.
And I've been working on a book for a while. And so
Cool.
that is something that I have to get out there.
Oh, yeah. What's the name of the book going to be? Have you already decided?
Get your boot off your neck. Get your boot off my neck. Stories of resilience.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot wait to read that.
So,
and some of us, the older we get, the younger we become. And I love to watch that. The energy goes up. People say, how do you get so much energy? And I think, well, I feel a sense of freedom now that I didn't feel before. I'm not bogged down at the end of the day. I'm really jazzed about getting up the next day and saying, oh, wow, what do I have in store today? Who am I going to work with? And, oh, this is cool. I love that feeling of, it's almost a youthful feeling.
It is. And you know what's really great is like I said, you're my third podcast today, and we're in the midst of COVID, and a lot of people who do podcasts find it to be a real arduous chore, and I don't. I mean, I just love it because all I have to do is have a conversation with somebody and record it. That's how it is for me. Yeah. And other people might find it to be a little bit more difficult, but for me, I'm just like, let's have a conversation and let's see how we can add value to women's lives and make menopause easier.
That's probably why I said yes to you. You didn't send me a list of questions. I wasn't confined by, we were just having a conversation about life, women, progress, what flows, what doesn't, what menopause looks and feels like right now. And I love that. And I love the fact that when I look up and people can't see this, but you're smiling, you can see the joy of how much you're enjoying.
We're recording the video. The video goes on YouTube, so people can see that. But yeah, I really do enjoy this, and I do feel like I've finally kind of walked into my power, and it's been a long time finding it because I really felt oppressed for a long time, and almost every podcast I have to bring up the patriarchy, but it's really hard to be a woman in America. Yeah. And we do have privileges. I mean, we as, Caucasian women have more privilege, and we've lived a much different life than our friends who have different colored skin. But, at the same time, women do understand the role oppression plays, the oppression by men, and the thought that we are only here for sexual gratification or to pop out children. So there's a lot of that. And, I don't know, if you're having identity issues, there's a lot of ways to kind of look at things differently. Remember, everything is belief, and a belief is just a sentence you say over and over and over again. And so it's really, once you start to realize that, all you have to do is change the sentence. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and work with you, what kind of transformation can they expect from working with you?
Well, again, it depends on, I think that intuitive coaching is really no one system fits all. I look at their energy, what they're doing, and I just have those aha moments with them in making the shifts. I really require them to be open to change. And, but I work with resistant people. It takes longer if they're resistant. But, sometimes I've been working with someone for 2 years now, and I look at where she started and where she's at now, and it blows my mind. But I guess I intuitively knew I'm not going to let go of this one. I know she's going to relinquish control and be and honor where she needs to be. And that's what I want. I want to see everyone flourishing. I want to see women owning their power, accepting menopause, not fighting this, and just saying, hey, I have more power now than I did before. What can I do with this? Instead of being frightened. I have so many people saying, oh, I can't go to Italy without my partner. No, come by yourself. Come be with women. And I mean, what can they expect? I mean, if they come to my retreat, goddess ceremonies, I'm bringing it all.
Well, if Italy's open by then, I think I'm going to come. Come.
Oh, I'd love to have you, Michelle.
Yeah. I think it would be really, really fun. I'd love to do a goddess ceremony. I think that would be really awesome.
Yeah. When they bought the chapel on the property, it's on a hillside above Tuscany. I did a retreat there before. I thought, you bought the chapel? I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wrote it out, and I bought everything. And I'm like, so I'm really, if it doesn't happen this October, it will happen next year. I'm definitely, Italy has a huge pull for me. The energy there, it's almost like I see things crystal clear. It's like I'm just dropped into complete joy. I mean, I ended up cooking for my retreaters last time. I had a chef, but I stepped in and did a lot of the vegan meals. But, the food was a little bit heavy from the chef, and there was a flow there. And I mean, that villa was talking to me. Those women that had cooked in that kitchen before were talking to me. It was,
that's so neat.
I couldn't wait to jump up at 4 a.m. I was weeping by the time I made these incredible dishes. I don't speak Italian. I don't read Italian. My recipes didn't come. My food didn't come. I worked with what the chef had brought, and I created these incredible meals. And I thought I just allowed my passion and what I just had to trust that I knew
Yeah.
what I was doing.
I
And
love cooking breakfast. I really love cooking breakfast for people. And that's like, I love getting up in the morning and cooking. I don't really love planning full meals anymore, but I do love cooking breakfast. And it's like, when we've gotten together as a family, and that's something that I'll get up and I'll make breakfast for everyone. And it's such a good time to just kind of get together and kind of go over like, how was your night and what's going on, and so instead of dinner. Where can people find you?
They can find me at it's thedanagrant.com. Instead of danagrant.com, it's thedanagrant.com.
Thedanagrant.com.
Yeah.
Great.
Danagrant.com wasn't available. And I went back to my name after Cali Soul Coaching. So it's thedanagrant.com, which it works until it comes available. It's going to be the Dana Grant. But
That's
then they
okay.
can find me. Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at The Real Dana Grant. And I love to connect on Facebook. I'm very social. I'm probably, as much time as I love to spend alone, and I'm such a paradox, is I really love people. And I love helping. I love reaching out. My team is not out there talking to people. It is me. And people often say, "Oh, is that you answering?" "Oh yeah, it's me." It's me answering. And I like that. How can people connect with my energy? How can I attract the right people if it's not me writing my stuff and connecting?
So I would like for you to, if you could just, I don't know if you're getting any intuitive hits other than your card, but if you could just, maybe just do a quick intuitive reading on me so that my audience can get an idea of what it is that you do.
Okay. Well, if I was working with you, we'd do it a little bit differently. But if I'm just going to do a quick read on just your energy, it's kind of like a quick energy read on you.
Yeah.
I would definitely say be guided by your passion and your joy. Do not listen to the voices that come at you from the left. Definitely feel the left. I feel voices coming from the left. So I don't know what that's about. Who's in your ear there telling you what you need to be doing? I want you to do what you want to be doing. So there's a big want. I feel the want. It's so strong. I can feel it in my stomach. So I don't know if you often hold things in your stomach, but I'm definitely getting a stomach vibe. So your throat chakra feels so clear to me. It's just like I could sing at a high volume, and we don't want me to do that. I'm not a singer. But I was checking out my body when you said that, and I keep coming back to my stomach. I thought, oh, she holds a lot in her stomach. And, keep moving. Everything you're doing and building, the direction you're going to, you are really guided by source. You are really connected by source. I can feel that. It's probably what drew me to this podcast, because I often will say, oh, well, it doesn't really fit with what I'm doing. But this, I just thought, oh, yes. And we've been trying to do this for a long time. And had we done this 2 years ago or a year ago, it would have been completely different than it is right now, because the evolution.
You were in Oslo right after me. And so you were talking about, going to the Rijksmuseum, and we had just, and there was the quartet outside, and it was like, gosh, she's doing exactly what we did. That's so weird. The canals.
I know.
And I got you confused with somebody else that I thought was going to be at a conference with me. So there's really a kinship there. That's for sure.
Yeah, there is. There are no mistakes. And I think that was it. When we first connected, it was like, you thought I was someone I thought you were. And I'm like, oh, wait, do we know each other? And what's so crazy about that is I do believe there are no mistakes.
Yeah. There aren't. God brings us together, and, it's just a matter of, turning our heads and seeing, that's really, I love this analogy about like finding God. And it isn't that we have to find God, because God's always there. Right. And we want God to reveal, but really it's our job to just simply just do this, because God's there. God's there. And God is, we are the children of God, and all we have to do is claim our birthright. And that may sound really simple, and it kind of is, but we also, we don't need to be redeemed or anything. It's not like we're full of sin. God is right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
God is right there. And all we have to do is just say, okay.
There's your power. And did you notice how you turned right? I said, stay left. I said, whatever's going on the left, and you were going to the right. So it's just
I turned to my right. Yeah. That's really fascinating. Well, Dana, thanks. I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you so much for, putting up with me and my computer problems and
I loved
all
it.
of that today.
It was
And
joyful, very joyful.
I sure hope to have you back on.
Absolutely.
Did you know that menopause is not a medical condition? Most doctors don't know this either. I like to say that menopause is the privilege of a long life. And to really take hold of our lives in menopause, we have to unlearn what society and the medical establishment has told us about menopause. Thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement.